And so today, we'll be joined by a team of, I would call them experts, because I know Bwana Otichilo is an expert in this space, and as well as Senator Kajwang. So we'll be joined by a team of expert speakers composed of Dr. Otichilo, Engineer Ngeno, who is joining virtually through Zoom. We have Bwana Bala, who is here. I think he's just going to pick the senator. We also have, on behalf of Thomas, Andrea Denzinga, who will speak on behalf of GIZ. And then we'll have our senator of Homa Bay County, Bwana Kajwang. And then we also have a team of technical experts from various institutions. Is there somebody who can move the slide to give us the panelists? The panelists, please. Yes. So, yeah, sure. Yes, so we have a team of 4 distinguished panelists. I think all of them are here already. We have Bwana Mithika Mwenda. Mithika just got in. I can't see many more now. Okay. And then we have Raymond Kinyua. Yes, welcome. Then we have Dr. Olufunso from FDB. He's also here. And lastly, we have Evelyn Otieno, who is equally here. So Mithika should be somewhere across the fence. We can just have it once you're ready. So this panel will speak about climate finance opportunities and cases for cities and counties in Kenya. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, I would wish to invite my colleague, Andrea, who will come and give you the perspective of GIZ and what we've done, what we are doing, and what we will do as far as climate finance is concerned. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for your patience, because we are running a bit behind, but you all know the reasons for that. I would like to really warmly welcome you to our side event today. And especially, I would like to welcome His Excellency, the Governor of Vihiga County and Chair of the Environment and Climate Change Committee at the Council of Governors, Dr. Wilbur Otichilo. I think he hasn't arrived yet, but still I'd like to welcome him, hoping he's arriving in a moment. The Senator of Homa Bay and convener of the Parliamentary Caucus on Climate Change, Honorable Moses Kachivai. Then very warm welcome to the City Manager of Kisumu, Mr. Balawanga, and our distinguished partners from the European Investment Bank, from the African Development Bank, from PACTA, and all our participants here in the room. Very warm welcome. Great to have you here. All protocols observed. Good afternoon. Climate change is not a choice. It is essential because it is affecting us already today and it's going to become even worse in the future. We all know that, and therefore climate resilience is a must for all of us. Yeah. And it is to really protect our people, our infrastructure, and our future. To be resilient against the impacts of climate change, like flooding, like droughts, which are impacting infrastructure and all our livelihoods. So this is why today we would like to talk to you about climate resilience and how this can be financed. And we are very proud to say that Germany is a very proud partner. We have a development partnership. It's a climate and development partnership between both governments, where we are supporting the Kenyan government in further developing climate strategies in terms of ambition, but also increasing resilience towards climate impacts. And within this partnership, we have one bilateral project called Climate Strategies and NDC Implementation, which I have the pleasure to lead. We are working there very closely with the Ministry of Environment and many other partners, also now from the county governments. So you will learn a bit more about this project in a moment.
Is it loud? Use this, eh? Sorry. Thank you.
Too loud? Okay. Yeah, so thank you. Much better. So basically, this project focuses on 3 areas. First of all, we are supporting with strategies and policies at the national level. Like, for example, we supported the NDC development, which has been submitted in April, which gives the path for climate mitigation and adaptation of Kenya, which is an international commitment for reducing emissions, but also for adapting emissions. And these targets are also linked to conditions. It says 20% of the implementation will be financed domestically, and 80% have to be mobilized from international sources. And this is also why we would like to talk to you today about good governance and managing financial resources, because not only for the national government and for all county governments also, it is important to be able to track how funding is being used, that it's being used in a traceable manner, and that certain principles of compliance are used or are applied. So this is basically one of our components in the projects. On the other hand, we are also supporting to mobilize climate finance. This is why we are very happy also to partner with other organizations here, especially development banks. And last but not least, we are supporting a few ASA counties in the ASA region in support in developing climate strategies and mobilizing financing for that. So yeah, meeting this ambition requires trust, not only from international partners, but basically from everyone who gives money into that system. And here we would like to discuss, where are some good practices, what opportunities for support are also available from other international partners. But our work is not only at policy level, it's also delivering on the ground. For example, in Nakuru, with the Urban Smart Energy Project, we are implementing a project of about 130 million Kenyan shilling to cut public building energy costs by 9 million annually. So you can see, first of all, it's an investment, but then it's going to pay back also. In Mombasa, for example, we are supporting a 1.08 billion shilling project to boost solar energy and improve regulatory frameworks. So this is also a partnership we are very proud of and where we are moving forward very effectively. So you can see it's not only impacts towards climate resilience, but also to local development. And today, we have all the right people in the place. We have people from government, we have people from civil society, from counties and development partners. So I'm sure we will have a great discussion to discuss funding opportunities, to share success stories from Kenya. And also, we would like to introduce a handbook we have developed. It's a climate finance handbook, which is going to be very supportive to better understand how climate finance can be used for projects. And this is also something we would like to introduce later on. So our message is basically very simple. Climate action at the county and city level is possible, and it works. And today we would like to discuss how it can work. So thank you very much, and welcome again.
Some better appreciation to her, please. Thank you so much, Andrea. She's set the stage for us. This mic is better, eh? Yeah, looks like we're now having this. We're doing it now, yeah? Good. So thanks so much, Andrea. I think she's mentioned the purpose for this side event, while appreciating, actually, the inclusiveness that the project, the bilateral project, is embodying in implementing or promoting climate strategies and NDC implementation in Kenya. At this point, I want to invite Bonaroy Odongo, who is my co-facilitator and also the director of climate change, Homa Bay County. But he is also the chair of all directors in Kenya. So he will speak on his behalf, on their behalf, and on our behalf. Welcome, Roy.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name, as is mentioned, is Roy Otieno Odongo, Director Climate Change, Homa Bay County, and also the chairperson of the Directors Caucus for the Directors of Climate Change and Environment Caucus at the Council of Governors. That is the national chairperson. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all the guests today, especially my colleague directors, county government officials. I'm seeing quite a number of them in the audience, and you can just stand and wave. Just stand and support your chair, please. Yes, I can see my colleague from Busia, I can see Samburu, I can see Vihiga, Embu. Yes, karibuni sana Homa Bay, as the senator and the city manager comes in to join us. Today, you all know that counties are at the front line of fighting this menace of climate change. And we've done quite a lot to prepare ourselves. For instance, all county governments now have established climate policy and legal frameworks. That is from the climate policies to the climate acts, the climate change action plans. I know of counties who have climate finance policies and even climate change fund regulations. So counties are already prepared in terms of policy and legal infrastructure. So now what remains is implementation, and as all you know, implementation requires financing. We have been benefiting from the funds given to us by FLOCA across all 45 counties. It's only Mombasa and Nairobi that are missing, and that has helped. But now we are looking beyond FLOCA, and we must be prepared to finance climate action post FLOCA, so that our action plans are implemented as envisaged in law and policy. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to Homa Bay County. It is a county of endless potential. As you've seen walking around town, you've noticed that we have unmatched potential that we are working to realize. And as you walk around, you can also visit our tourist attractions, Roma National Park, the islands in Rusinga, and many other things available, and also enjoy our delicious samaki, which is available in plenty, which I know most of you must have enjoyed by now. Karibuni sana. So I want to take this opportunity now to welcome one of the most transformative leaders that have been operating in this country and in this region, in the name of the city manager for Kisumu, Mr. Balawanga. His work in Kisumu has been tremendous, and is continuing to transform Kisumu into a world-class city, and above all, to make it resilient to the impacts of climate change. Karibu, Mr. Awanga. Thank you. Yes, you just continue.
So I'm going to give the remarks.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Senator Kajwang, Your Excellency, the Governor of Vihiga, who have been a champion of climate change from the inception when they became the governor. I can see the GIZ team here, senior county government officials, and my friend, the chairman of the CC caucus, the whole country. Thank you. I'm here to give my brief remarks on financing of climate change initiative in the cities. I can speak for the cities. I think the most prominent financing of climate change in Kenya has been through FLOCA. FLOCA is countywide. And there's no trickle effect in the urban centers, the municipalities, and the cities. Kenya has 5 major cities now. We have Mombasa, Nairobi, Nakuru, Eldoret, and Kisumu. Eldoret, Nakuru, and Kisumu are unique counties because they are cities within a county. So Kisumu as a county has a city of Kisumu. Uasin Gishu as a county has a city of Eldoret. Nakuru as a county has Nakuru as a city. Now, Floka takes the generality of all the county. But specifically, when you come to Kisumu, you'll find that Kisumu City, with his new geospatial plan and the new boundaries, has a lot of climate change issues. Kisumu has 4 wards that go through perennial flooding. We have Nyalenda, Dunga, Migosi, and part of Nyamanyata A, and the notorious Nyamasaria, where the rivers burst and floods the city. Sometimes it doesn't rain, but when there's a lot of rain, when there are a lot of rains in Nandi Hills, all that water come and floods our rivers after the banks are exploded. And the rising water levels Lake Victoria also gives a lot of challenge. When there's problem in Jinja, Lake Victoria water, there's an overflow. And it causes a lot of disaster. So we suffer a lot of flooding. And flooding comes with a lot of problems. It comes with diseases. It comes with outbreaks. It comes with a lot of social problems. Now, counties cannot manage to deal with those disasters. So urban resilience is very important. So urban resilience need to be given a lot of attention and focus, because is that city able to withstand the challenges of city disasters like floods? Every year in Kisumu, we have to relocate almost over 200 residents in a place. We have to appeal for blankets where they want to stay. We have to get ambulances. We have to get medical camps. We have to get Red Cross to help us rescue people. All the houses are flooded. Then diarrhea creeps in, malaria, and other diseases. So urban financing needs to be given a lot of focus. So the GIZ, as one of the cog of the wheel for all donors, we should champion for, and I'm good. Senator Kajwang is here. It is time urban centers get conditional grants. Conditional grant specifically to finance the urban resilience initiative to challenge the climate change issues. Now, we also suffer from a lot of climate change issues. I can give you an example. That when there was Corona was also due to climate change. Because it was due to weather patterns, so many things. There were a lot of problems. All our markets were closed in the urban centers. We had no disease outbreak unit. Climate change is not only planting trees. Yeah, when you come from Nairobi, you can tell us, we want you to plant 1 million trees. Plant what? We keep on planting trees. So we have those partners and the NGOs in the city coming with the tree seedlings to plant, not growing them even. That's not climate change initiative. It is not only dealing with a lot of a few issues. There's a lot of parameters that affect climate change under urban areas. When you go to informal settlements, the people who live in the slums, these are the people who face a lot of problems under climate change, especially in cities where there's a lot of diseases like malaria. Now, we in Kisumu have conditioned that now we want urban areas in Kisumu under the county government to get at least a percentage of the budget for climate change issues. Even if we get 5% of that budget, even if we get 10%. So, Senator, although we have climate change policies, Kisumu is yet to complete on theirs, but the financing component still needs to have a lot of discussion. And we take this to the doorstep of the Senate to ensure that national government gives a conditional grant to climate change. We cannot only rely on donors. What is the government putting in? And specifically, I'm not talking about for the county government, because I'm the chairman of the caucus of all urban centers in Kenya. I'm talking about urban areas. Now look at Ahero. For those of you who come from Kisumu, Ahero, people live with water. The only relief of water is like winter. You have summer for 2 months. The rest is water. And you can't relocate them. So all the time, Ahero is flooding. And all the climate change issues associated with Ahero is now an urban center. It needs some money of its own to be controlling this thing. Opening the rivers. Now, Kisumu, we have done a plan through World Bank. The gods have spoken. And I want to tell you how sometimes funding from the World Bank can come with a lot of conditions. We have, in our next KUSP allocation, KUSP 2, we have designed to deal with the flooding in Dunga, Nyamasaria River, Aleora, Wigwa, all those riverbanks. We would like to have, we have decided to take almost 500 million to do canneling. What I saw done in Singapore and what I saw was done in St. Petersburg. We want to do all that canneling. We have done the design. We have the expert to draw these things. Then when I was giving a speech somewhere, the media picked me. The World Bank wrote me a long message. Ensure you don't interfere with the ecosystem. World Bank money is not used to resettle people. World Bank money is what? You just let me use the money because we are using the money to help the people. So don't bring it with conditions. So if you're financing me, don't finance me with conditions. Finance me and just audit if that money is utilized properly. Don't tell me what to do because you stay in Nairobi and Washington and you don't know what's affecting Kisumu people. So give me the money, I help Kisumu people. I work with my government to help Kisumu people. So climate change financing, those conditions, those serious conditions you're putting. Even if Loka, if Governor of Tichilo doesn't put in 100 million, you're not giving money. Give Governor of Tichilo money unconditionally because he knows what is affecting his people. Finance the people. So financing with conditions for urban financing, donors, please remove those conditions. The only condition you need to do is to monitor if your money is being utilized. Audit it well. That is the thing. Thank you very much. Thank you for those few remarks. I'll come back to the session of questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, City Manager. Can we give a round of applause for those very weighty remarks for the manager? Now, our next speaker happens to be an eminent son of this county, the current Senator of Homa Bay County, who also is the chairperson of the Parliamentary Caucus on Climate Change, Honorable Senator Moses Kajwang. Kindly step up to the stage to make your remarks. Karibu sana.
Good afternoon, delegates. I know it's a bit difficult to have this conversation after lunch on a hot Homa Bay afternoon, but I also take note that I'm required to speak for only 5 minutes, so that will make your life easier. If you're planning to sleep, by the time you blink, I'll be done. Thank you. Thank you. I wish to thank GIZ for convening this side event. I was a member of the steering committee for devolution conference, and I've been a member of the steering committee for various devolution conferences. We made it clear that the true conversation happens inside events. In the plenary there, we make political statements, and then everybody goes home. It is in these side events that we can come up with actionable insights and where we can share and exchange knowledge. My job really was to make some opening remarks. I'm looking forward to listen to my friend, my senior, Dr. Otichilo, who is the father of the Climate Change Act in Kenya. In fact, Dr. Otichilo, our friend Sam Onugbo from Nigeria, when he successfully pushed through the Climate Change Act in Nigeria some 2 years ago, he was given the country's highest individual honor for pushing through the Climate Change Act. I don't know whether you were given one back in 2016 when Kenya became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to have a Climate Change Act. Kenya has been a leader in that space, and whenever we go for multilateral engagements, we are very proud to talk about our green energy mix, where the bulk of electricity or the bulk of energy in this country is generated from green sources. So I'm looking forward to listening to Dr. Otichilo, and I'm also looking forward to going through the Climate Finance Handbook, which I believe is going to be released at some point. I have not come here to lord it over you because I don't think I know everything within that space. I am your typical politician. I am a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I will make very few remarks in this space. As the chair of the Parliamentary Caucus on Climate Change, first of all, let me tell you how we got to this. After Dr. Otichilo did excellent work back in 2016 and convinced Parliament and the country to have a dedicated law on climate change, there was supposed to be established a climate change fund. And I know that is related to the conversation we are having today. And various other entities, for example, the Climate Change Council, was supposed to be chaired by the president and was supposed to be the apex body for conversations on climate issues. We realized that the law was not being implemented. And we also realized that if you are to rely on departmental committees to oversight the implementation of the act, departmental committees were chaired by members of the party in government. And so they would not push the government very hard to ensure that the fund was established and to ensure that the council was established. We decided, because climate change is an existential threat, to bring together members of parliament from both houses who are passionate and who are concerned about the matter. And so we established the Climate Change Caucus, which has a very big membership, and it has got a huge voluntary contribution. When we went for one of the conferences of parties, we came across the Green Climate Fund. And through an organization called Climate Parliament, which is also a global organization of parliamentarians who are volunteering to provide ideas on climate change, mitigation, and adaptation, we did a proposal to GCF. And we were able to get GCF funding. I'm sure there are people in this room who have tried applying for GCF funding. Perhaps it's more difficult than going to heaven. Because to go to heaven, you just need to do a few nice things. But to get GCF financing is almost an impossibility. How are we able to get $1 million from the GCF? It's because through Climate Parliament, which brings together parliamentarians from across the world, we engage the services of UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization. Now, the UNIDO guys, many of them, current and past, were involved in establishing the valuation frameworks for GCF. You know, I want to be candid that climate finance, particularly global climate finance, if we are not careful, it's going to be a cartel where the people who set the rules are the same ones with the ability to write applications which become successful. So when we realized that that's a system, we went to UNIDO. We got some very sharp people at UNIDO who had worked with GCF over the years. They wrote a very comprehensive, complex proposal that Parliament could not have written. And we were given $1 million as Parliament to build the capacity of parliamentarians on climate change issues, but also to build the capacity of Kenya to write a bigger proposal. Now, you hear that. Museveni usually complains about this. Global multilateral financing. They are very quick to fund capacity building. Capacity building. Once they are done with capacity building, the next level, they tell you now we want a bankable project. And what is a bankable project? A bankable project, if you look at all the parameters of a bankable project, the things that Abalawanga needs to do might not be seen as bankable because most of them are social impact projects. Bankable projects has an economic perspective to it. And we put rules. And these rules do not really facilitate access to these funds. They hinder access to these funds. But since we have learnt the game, we are playing along. So 1 month ago, we were in Namibia, and we had brought together members of parliament from the Southern Africa bloc. Members of parliament from the Northern Africa bloc had had an engagement in Morocco. They had gone to Marrakesh to look at some green energy zones. We also went to Namibia to look at some green hydrogen plants and some industries where they were processing iron ore using solar and green hydrogen. Very innovative stuff. We sat with the GCF representative and they told us that they are under pressure because money is not flowing to where it is needed. And they gave us a very detailed presentation on how we can access those resources. I know this conversation is about unlocking climate finance to ensure that our cities and our counties are resilient. So right now, we are working with UNIDO, we are working with Climate Parliament and GCF to see if we can build a proposal for FLOCA 2. Roy was standing here, he mentioned that FLOCA is, the sunset I think is in 1 year, is in one year or 2 years, next year. And I've talked to Murada of the World Bank. I had a word with the High Commissioner for Germany. Sebastian Groth is Germany? Yes. So over lunch, we had a conversation with him. And he mentioned to me that even the German government has certain facilities for capacity building and for ensuring that countries are ready to apply for bigger financing from the GCF. So Abala, Governor Otichilo, and all of us in this room, there is money. There is money out there, but accessing it is a problem. Try to learn the rules. Try to learn the rules of the game. And the rules of the game, go and look for UNIDO, go and look for some of those guys who are involved in writing the rules. And I think the GCF this time is very serious in pushing out financing because they feel they've got this credibility crisis, that money is being put in, but people are not accessing it. Of course, the adaptation fund, I am not sure whether anyone here has been able to draw from the adaptation fund. The loss and damage fund, perhaps we'll sort this out when we go for the next COP in Brazil. So there's money scattered all over. But I want to agree with Abala that we cannot wait for multilateral funds and donor funds, and yet we are a sovereign nation. We must also dedicate some resources to climate change. And Governor Otichilo, unfortunately, the climate change fund that you had proposed in the Act has never been established. And so climate financing is so fragmented. And I think my friends at Treasury like it that way. I don't know whether Peter is in the room. Peter Ondego. Is Hillary around? I thought I saw Hillary was supposed to do a section here. You know, the team at the Treasury are doing a marvelous job in terms of mobilizing climate financing. They're doing a great job, be it FLOCA, be it the various things that they're doing. But for consistency and for ring-fencing, we need to establish that fund so that all loans and grants and all commitments from government on climate change can be put into one pot and there can be visibility and traceability in the manner in which it is spent. And if we did so, I believe then the Senate would be in a position to even propose a conditional grant to go to counties, but particularly a conditional grant to go to cities. I still believe, and when Abala was counting the cities in Kenya, he mentioned Nakuru City. I had the privilege of being the chair of the devolution committee in the Senate when Nakuru applied to be a city. And I worked with them through the process of certification. And ultimately, as a chair, I brought a report to the House that made Nakuru a city. But I'm still dissatisfied with the manner in which we are financing cities. Because we are sending money to Nakuru County and expecting out of that money, Governor Susan Kihika will be generous enough to allocate something big to the city. The cities are not being funded. Be it Nakuru, be it Uasin Gishu. I think Kisumu is doing well because of the bulldozing nature of Abala Wanga. Because if he's not given money, he might bring down the governor's house. But it needs to go beyond that. So I want to commit that as a Senate, we'll explore means of doing direct financing for climate resilience to cities, but we will also continue pushing that Kenya must have this climate change fund. And the only problem is that Treasury does not want to bring regulations to the House. And since 2016, that has been the case. My 5 minutes are over. But let me assure the stakeholders here, first of all, GIZ, the German government, and the various donors in the House, that we highly appreciate the support that you are sending to our counties. As I said yesterday at the opening session, we are concerned that the process of approving conditional grants in Parliament is taking too long. In the last financial year, we were approving the additional allocations bill, I think in the month of, perhaps in the 9th month. Or Governor Otichilo, when did we unlock it? About March. That is not even the 9th month. That is the 10th month. And so a lot of projects that had been initiated, be they FLOCA, be they Kenya Informal Settlement Program, they had to stall. And that gives a bad name because people start thinking that governors are stealing that money. And so I want to make that commitment and make that clarification that the failure was entirely in the hands of Parliament. And we had a meeting with the Devolution Donor Working Group some time back, and we had agreed that we needed to explore ways of ensuring that that instrument is done in a much more timely manner and in a much more efficient manner. That commitment I want to give, and I want to also request that when we go back after this conference, we can have another roundtable with the Devolution Donor Working Group so that we can find the pain points and together try to come up with the solutions. We are also keen to listen to a few success stories, and I'm sure that the next speakers will give us a few success stories. Let me cite one. Laikipia County 3 years ago brought to Parliament a request for approval of an infrastructure bond. That infrastructure bond was supposed to be used to improve roads, markets, and I think there was an element of drainage and climate resilience stuff in it. It was a very, very clearly structured proposal. Unfortunately, Parliament did not approve it. Parliament did not approve it not because it did not believe in that innovative financing mechanism. It was too close to the election. And there was a feeling that the government could make a commitment that would tie the successive government. I want to encourage county governments. Let's be innovative. Look at the Laikipia template. And I believe that if we were to receive a request from a county, be it Kisumu City, looking for money for climate resilience. And Abala, we have seen the excellent work that you're doing in Kisumu. It will be easy to convince members of Parliament, Senate, and National Assembly to approve that you float a bond, a green bond, so that you are able to ensure that Kisumu is a true city. I encourage you to explore that route, even as we explore how to access resources from the other multilateral funds. I wish you good deliberations, and I will sit down at this moment, invite my senior. I don't call him my big brother because he's my father, a friend of mine. We were together in the was it 11th or 12th Parliament? In the 11th Parliament. I found him in the 11th Parliament. Then he became a governor. Then now we are still friends, even though from time to time I ask him very tough questions around accountability. Karibu Governor, for the keynote address for the day today. Makofi, the first climate change act in sub-Saharan Africa, Dr. Wilbur Otichilo.
Thank you. Well, after listening to Moses, I don't know where to start. But I will start where I decided that I will start. First, I want to take this opportunity to thank GIZ for organizing this very important event. I also want to thank Moses Kajwang and Abala for setting the stage. I think the political angle, you have given it very well. And I will not dare even add anything. Because if I add anything, I'm going to spoil. So I will not dare do that. Further, I want to thank all of you who have come to attend this very important session. And I'm particularly excited because most of the people who are here are from the counties, are directors of climate change, chief officers or CECs in charge of environment and climate change. So we are in a right forum where we can now talk technical language without worrying at all. So allow me to read my statement as I prepared it, and if I choose to make any extra remarks, I will do so. So let me go ahead and read my statement as a keynote speech. It is an honor to stand before you today as the keynote speaker to this critical site event, financing climate resilience in cities and counties. As we gather here at the Devolution Conference, we are reminded of the urgent need to address the climate crisis at subnational level. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is a present reality that affects every aspect of our lives, our economy, our health, our infrastructure, and our environment. Today, I will focus on the state of climate finance in Kenya, with a specific orientation towards funding at the county level and explore how we can mobilize resources to build resilient communities in Kenya. Kenya, like many other countries, is already experiencing the devastating effects of climate change. From prolonged droughts to erratic rainfall patterns, floods, and rising temperatures, the impacts are felt across all sectors. According to the Kenya Meteorological Department, the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events are expected to increase in the coming years, posing significant risk to our communities, especially in urban areas. Kenya is particularly vulnerable due to the diverse climate zones and reliance on agriculture, which employs about 75% of the population. The World Bank reported that climate change could reduce agricultural yields up to 50% by 2050. Kenya is experiencing frequent climate shocks, posing significant economic risks, with estimated potential real GDP losses of up to 7% by 2050. Climate-related disasters in Kenya are attributable to extreme climate events, with 70% of disasters from natural hazards caused by climate-related events. The cost of climate action in Kenya were estimated at $62 billion, with government expected to provide about 13% of this budget, and 18% is required from international support. Despite these challenges, Kenya has made significant strides in addressing climate change. The National Climate Change Action Plan 2022 to 27 and the Climate Change Act of 2016, amended in 2023, provides a robust framework for climate action. However, the success of these initiatives depend on adequate financing, particularly at a county level. Counties are at the front line of climate change, and they require sustainable funding to implement adaptation and mitigation measures. Kenya is a signatory to the 2015 Paris Agreement, which sets out the mechanism for funding adaptation and mitigation mechanisms which mandates counties to deal with climate issues through setting commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. As a country, we are currently implementing the 2015-2030 NDCs, which were updated in December 2020 and submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And the second proposed NDCs, that's 2031 to 2035, which have already been developed this year and submitted by the Ministry of Environment, Forestry, and Climate Change. To address issues of climate change, Kenya has put in place policy and legislative framework, the Climate Change Policy and the Climate Change Act of 2023 and regulations. Further, the country has enacted the National Climate Finance Policy, the National Climate Change Strategy of 2009, and the National Climate Change Action Plan. As a result of these institutional frameworks to address issues of climate change have been established at both national and county levels. At the national level, we have the Climate Change Directorate at the Ministry of Environment. At the National Treasury, we have the Climate Change Finance Unit. At the county level, county governments have established climate change policy and legislative frameworks which have culminated in the establishment of climate change directorates that coordinate climate change issues across all sectors of the 47 counties. The state of climate finance in Kenya. I'll give you an overview. Based on Paris Agreement, countries are expected to access to international climate financing through United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The UNFCCC financing mechanism leverages on multilateral funds, which include Green Climate Fund, GCF, Global Environment Fund, GEF, Adaptation Fund. Countries can also access to climate finance through bilateral agreements. At the national level, countries are expected to put in place their own funding mechanisms, including negotiating grants and support from various development partners. As regards to Kenya, the Climate Change Act establishes Climate Change Fund, which is supposed to annually which is supposed to be annually budgeted for by the National Treasury and approved by Parliament. This fund is expected to be managed by the National Climate Change Council, which is supposed to be chaired by His Excellency the President. Unfortunately, to date, this fund has never been operationalized, as clearly articulated by our senator. So this is a big drawback to Kenya, despite of us being a leader in legislative and policy frameworks on climate change. At the sub-national or county level, climate change legislations have established county climate change funds whose main aim is to mainstream climate change adaptation and mitigation activities in all sectors of the economy, including community participation. Overall, counties contribute 1 to 3% of their annual budgets to climate change initiatives. Further, counties are also able to mobilize resources for climate action from development partners, civil society organizations, and community-based organizations. How do we access to climate finance through UNFCCC mechanism? In Kenya, NEMA is the designated entity that is charged with the responsibility of coordinating both adaptation and mitigation funds through the Paris Agreement. To date, most of the funding through this mechanism has been for mitigation initiatives, especially for those dealing with renewable energy. For instance, the development of geothermal energy in the Rift Valley and the wind energy in Turkana and Marsabit counties. Kenya has also benefited from the Green Climate Fund and Global Environmental Fund for various projects in the country. Kenya received $265 million from GCF to expand geothermal energy production in the Rift Valley. This project aims to increase Kenya's renewable energy capacity and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Kenya also secured $25 million for a project focused on promoting climate-smart agriculture in arid and semi-arid regions. The project aims to improve food security and build resilience among smallholder farmers. Early this year, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, while in Korea, signed an agreement between the Government of Kenya, GCF, and FAO worth $50 million towards promotion of climate resilient and low carbon practices in 6 value chains in the Lake Region Economic Bloc. This project is just about to start. Climate finance through FLOCA. At the national level, both national and county governments formulated a program called Financing Locally Led Climate Action to fund institutional capacity and climate change initiatives at a community level for the period 2020 to 2030. This program is funded by a consortium that includes the World Bank, Denmark, Sweden, Netherlands, the National Treasury, and county governments. The total cost of this program is $1 billion for the next 5 years and is budgeted at a rate of $200 million annually. This includes contributions from the county governments of approximately $50 million for the coming 5 years. The program enables county governments to operationalize climate change action plans and invest in priority climate resilience initiatives that are responsive to climate vulnerabilities with a goal to secure climate resilience future. To date, the program has disbursed Kenya shillings 1.5 billion to 46 counties for capacity building, and 45 counties have received a combined disbursement of Kenya shillings 17 billion for implementation of climate resilient projects. I think the next disbursement is on the way coming now that the legislative requirement has been approved and signed by the president. Now, let's look at some of the best practices in climate financing. All counties in Kenya have received funding from FLOCA, These funds have been structured for use in institutional capacity building at the county and community levels, as well as investment in climate change initiatives at the community level. The project is coordinated by National Climate Financing Unit at the National Treasury, which ensures that the project procedures are adhered to, including monitoring and evaluation. Further, the disbursement of funds for various initiatives are based on performance, and therefore counties that can only access to funds if they have fulfilled all the requirements. The funding is results-based, which means counties which perform well receive increased funding, and the reverse is also true. Based on this implementation framework, many counties have implemented innovative programs which have improved the livelihoods of their communities, as well as addressing climate change challenges. The following are a few among many best initiatives implemented by counties across the country. For example, in Vihiga, one of the most successful initiatives in the various water projects across the county. In order to enhance the resilience in the water sector, the county government of Vihiga, through the FLOGA program and on allocation, has invested over 300 million in more than 20 solar-powered water projects. These projects have enabled more than 10,000 households across the county, among them vulnerable rural households, access to clean and safe water. The project also encompasses conservation of the respective catchment areas for sustainability of the supply. In Bomet, the county has invested in Emaunas and Ngainet fish production for improved food security and nutrition, especially for women and children. The project aims to generate income for the farmers and promote climate-smart solutions. In Isiolo, the county has rehabilitated boreholes, equipped and extended pipeline in Burat ward, therefore making accessibility to this important commodity ease for the residents. This is in addition to new boreholes which have been sunk, equipped, and auxiliary structures constructed. In Nyeri, the county has constructed 2 solar coffee dryers at the Chorongoi and the Thenganini coffee factories. These 2 solar dryers have enabled the coffee factory to reduce the drying time of the cherry beans by 50%, while at the same time maintaining quality, reducing labor costs, and ultimately increasing farmer incomes. In Kajiado County, solarization of the Ngong Booster Water Project in Ngong provides clean, safe water and reliable water to over 80,000 people. Finally, let me look at some of the innovative financial instruments that are available for us to consider as we look for climate financing. I will start with the carbon markets instruments. This is an area where we need Rio to focus. Article 6.1 of the Paris Agreement provides a framework for international cooperation on climate action, specifically through the use of market and non-market mechanisms to achieve the nationally determined contribution, NDCs. It outlines how countries can collaborate to reduce emissions and mobilize finances to support climate action, with a particular focus on enabling developing countries to participate in these efforts. Overall, Kenya has not been able to participate in this effort. Overall, Kenya has not been able to participate in the carbon markets officially, except through voluntary carbon markets by private entities. However, Kenya has now amended the Climate Change Act of 2023 to incorporate carbon markets and has formulated carbon markets regulations to enable both the national and the county governments to participate in carbon trading as part of climate change financing mechanism. Kenya has also prepared a carbon market guidebook, and I think it will be launched today, for enterprises. Despite the country not officially participating in carbon markets, Kenya private sector is leading in carbon trade in Africa. In 2021, Kenya carbon trading market, particularly within the voluntary carbon market, accounted for 23% of the value of carbon credit insurance in Africa. Carbon markets have a high prospect of generating more climate funding through the current national initiative of restoration of degraded areas through growing of the 15 billion trees by 2032. This initiative is in line with the Paris Agreement on reducing emissions from degradation and forest degradation, and therefore is eligible for carbon markets. So that's one area that we need to examine as we move forward as counties. The other important instrument is what was alluded on by the senator, that is the issue of green bonds instruments. Green bonds are fixed income instruments whose proceeds are earmarked exclusively for projects with environmental benefits, mostly related to climate change, mitigation, and or adaptation, but also to natural resources depletion, loss of biodiversity, and air, water, or soil pollution. The national government recognizes the importance of green bonds in financing environmental projects. As a result of that, the government has enacted the Green Economy Strategy and Implementation Plan, that's 2016 to 2030, which specifies access to green bonds. The Green Bond Program in Kenya aims to promote financial sector innovation by developing domestic green bond market. In this regard, in 2022, the National Treasury approved a project funded by Financial Sector Deepening, FSD, Kenya, to assess county green bonds potential through economic, physical, credit risk, green assets, and green finance capability assessment. Based on this, 10 counties were chosen for this pilot project. These counties are Vihiga, Embu, Kirinyaga, Kisumu, Laikipia, Makueni, Nairobi, Nandi, Taita Taveta, and Wajir. The outcome of this assessment showed different counties were at various levels of qualification and therefore required more time to reach the qualification level. FSD Kenya is working in collaboration with these counties for them to attain the qualification for access to green bonds. And it's only Laikipia, as you heard earlier, which qualified and therefore was eligible to getting to green bonds. The other very important instrument which I want to just highlight is the instrument on environmental, social, and governance instrument. That is the ESG instrument. Environmental, social, and governance, that's ESG, is a new principle introduced in the private sector. ESG is a powerful tool in the fight against climate change. By integrating environmental, social, and governance factors into business practices and investment decisions, organizations can drive sustainable growth and protect the planet. The environmental pillar covers factors affecting climate change, such as carbon footprint, water usage, greenhouse emissions, deforestation, pollution mitigation, effect of biodiversity, and waste management. County governments can individually engage in private sector for funding of various climate change programs and activities through the ESG initiative. In this regard, many counties are already engaging various companies to fund various climate change initiatives. For example, in Vihiga, we have partnered with Equity Bank and Safaricom Foundation for reforestation of Maragoli Hills. For further, many corporate organizations are now committed to sustainable development through budgeting and implementation of sustainable development goals of the United Nations. Finally, let me just say a few words on the climate finance module. How do we go ahead and raise money for climate change? So let me just say a few sentences and then I'll be end. Last and not least, climate finance module is a practical resource that can guide counties in accessing and managing climate finance. It provides a step-by-step framework for identifying funding opportunities, developing bankable projects, and monitoring and evaluating the impact of climate investments. Most of these modules are online, so you can access them online. Although counties have not fully embraced the climate finance module, significant elements of these modules are already being practiced through the FLOCA program, including the institutional framework. It is therefore urgent that counties should build capacity in this innovative climate change module through FLOCA funding or other funding mechanism. I therefore encourage all counties to adopt this tool and integrate it into their planning and formulation of funding proposals for climate action and resilience. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the challenges posed by climate change are immense, but so are the opportunities. By exploring diverse finance avenues, learning from best practices, building strategic partnerships, and utilizing practical tools, counties can mobilize the resources needed to build climate-resilient communities. As leaders, we have the responsibility to ensure that our counties are prepared to face the impacts of climate change. Let us use this platform to share knowledge, forge partnerships, and commit to scaling up climate action financing. Together, we can create a sustainable and a resilient future for Kenya. Thank you and God bless you.
Let us give a round of applause for the governor as he sits down. That is a wonderful speech from the guru himself. Now, we've had a wonderful session involving all the three speakers, beginning with the city manager of Kisumu, who highlighted the importance of financing resilience in urban areas and the cities, and also mentioned that this financing should not come with so many conditions. I know financing must come with some conditions, but not those that are preventing actual implementation. On the senator, on his part, mentioned that they are working on a formula to refinance FLOCA, which I think is good news for the county governments who are here, and also mentioned that counties should adopt a smart approach towards seeking for climate financing. And he also committed to move Parliament to approve additional allocations to counties in a timely manner so that projects can be implemented. Now, the governor was just sat down, gave us an overview, walked us through the climate finance landscape in Kenya, beginning from the global level right down to the county governments, and emphasized on the importance of developing our carbon markets. Since there's a lot of potential as provided for in Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, and mentioned other instruments like the green bonds, which already some counties are benefiting from, and also lauded the formulation of the climate finance module, which is will be launched at the end of this session, and said that the climate finance module is a good format for mobilizing climate finance for building climate resilience in the counties. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome back my co-moderator, Kennedy, to take the program forward. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Bonaroy, for that great session. Time is so much spent, but again, we are here for the good reasons. Money. Apparently, when the senator in absentia was mentioning some of, the financing development partners, most of them actually are in the room. Yeah, they are in the room. So if you came late, we have the African Development Bank in the room. And we also have the European Investment Bank in this room. We also have KfW, which is a German finance bank, or what I call a finance investment bank for Germany. They are also in the room. I also want to recognize the presence of chairman of the Kenya Climate Change Working Group, Bwana Kioli, is in here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would want us to go a bit technical, and I request that the governor, you stay put around. There is some engagements already coming from the audience, from the delegates that probably interact with. We'll have a very brief 30 or so minutes of panel discussion, really getting deep into the technical. And I'm happy that, I was actually talking to the panel moderator, and he told me that most of his questions have been answered actually by the speakers who came ahead. And so it gives him a lot of, easy work. And so at this point, allow me to invite Abel Omanga, my colleague, who is the project advisor on adaptation and mitigation at GIZ. Abel has been with us for over 14 years working on the subject of climate change. So you can imagine the level of content that he has. Abel will come to talk to 4 panelists. Well, there's quite some good bio there. But Abel will come and to speak to or speak with 4 panelists whom he will introduce in a few. Welcome, and please help me welcome Abel.
Thank you, Kennedy. Good afternoon. Thanks for the patience. I think we've had a very bad start, but the momentum has come in. I think we are now ready to go. We are going to have a panel discussion with a team that is very diverse. I think it's a long time I moderated a session of this magnitude of diversity, but also the representation from the financing sector, the people who are implementing, the public sector. So allow me to borrow what His Excellency has really spoken to the entire objectives that we had for the panel. So we are going to go to another level to interrogate the topic of climate financing at cities and the counties. The cities is a big topic now that we don't want to underestimate what the cities are doing. Urbanization by 2050 is really going to be a big thing. Most of the population in Kenya, it is predicted to be moving to the urban areas. And if the cities are left behind, I think we should have more issues than we have now. We are going to have more losses to assets. We are going to have more health issues. Solid waste is becoming a big issue to the future. And all these are linked to each other. So I will go straight away to really call my team of panelists. We're going to have 2 rounds of questions, 3 minutes per question. Because of time, we shall not really allow very, very long submissions. Just be straight to the point, 2 rounds of questions, and then we shall have a plenary for 10 minutes, and we shall allow the floor to interact with us, and we shall also invite His Excellency and other speakers who came before to also respond to some specific questions from the floor. So allow me to start inviting the first panelist, Mr. Raymond Kinyua, the County Executive Member for Lands, Urban Development, as well as Environment and Climate Change, Embu County. Please join me to welcome Waziri to the floor. Waziri has a wide experience. I don't want to go through the full details, but he has over 20 years in public sector service. He has a postgraduate degree in community development and education policy, and he has worked progressively in the public sector for over 20 years. He has been awarded the Order of the Grand Warrior by the President for his exemplary work to the public. Could we once more welcome Mr. Raymond? Second is Ms. Evelyn Otieno, a public planner, long experience, about 2 decades experience in urban planning and management, a postgraduate degree in urban planning, and several other professional certifications in circular economy and sustainable development. She has worked internationally with other international organizations and national, including the city of Kisumu. The city manager was around here. She has worked for Food and Agriculture Organization, SKL International, and currently the Urban Development Specialist in the Urban Advisory Division, the European Investment Bank. Could you welcome Evelyn? Dr. Mithika Mwenda, is he around? I saw him. He was making some submission. He will join us in the due course. But it's good I mentioned that he works for the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, where he's the co-founder, but also co-executive director. He's going to join us in a short while. Last but not least, Dr. Alfonso Somorini, the Regional Principal Officer, African Development Bank. He has over 15 years in climate change and development finance, particularly within Africa. He also a PhD in international environmental policy from Wageningen University, 2 MScs from Erasmus. And this, I think, is among his credentials. What is also important is a past experience, over 300 development projects that have been supervised by Dr. So he has really done a lot of work in the development sector. He's currently the Regional Principal Officer for the African Development Bank. I mentioned this, and he leads the climate change and the green growth initiatives for the countries in East Africa. Welcome, Dr. Could we appreciate Dr. to the panel? So we shall straight away get to the discussions. Feel free to take note. We shall be having a team that will also help us. If you cannot speak, please write your question. And there is a team of facilitators. Where are they? John and Brenda? Brenda is there at the far back. Could you stand for people to see you? That is Brenda. Please feel free. And John is the lady who's busy organizing everything within this setup. So we could straight away get to the discussions so that I could also, do we have the mic? Where is the mic? Good. So we start with you, Waziri. So with the financing, I think we've had a very good takeoff today on how the national financing mechanisms for climate change in Kenya, where we've had various mechanisms through which the county governments, the subnational government, including cities, are receiving climate financing. But could you share the role of national public finance mechanisms such as the National Climate Change Fund, which is, we've been told, it has faced so many challenges. But if it starts operating, which role do you think it is going to play in enabling access of finance to the subnational level? Over to you, Waziri.
Thank you very much, Abel. I'm glad that you started by saying that we've had a very good start. When you speak after Governor Dr. You have very little to say because in his speech he has actually summarized what we are supposed to deliberate. However, we have what we may contribute. And even before I get down to that, Abel, I'd like to say that one of the challenges that we've been having is that we have very good ideas. We put up policies, we come up with legal frameworks, and then at the end of the day, we do not take the next step to operationalize what we've already agreed to do. And to digress a bit, because of my friend Abalawanga, who mentioned about the challenges that we have in urban climate resilience. I want to say, and because Governor is here, who is the father of climate change, that one other fund that if it was operationalized would even complement the fund we are talking about is also the National Urban Fund. Because the challenges of climate change are more severe in our urban centers, because that is where a lot of population and there is a lot of pressures in the urban centers. But I want to be very quick and maybe pick up a few things that were said, not that they have not been said to the panel. With the National Climate Change Fund, we expect that the counties, and some counties, Abel, have already done that. They have actually enacted county climate change legislations. They are in place. Because what is very important is the preparation stage. Because even if we get funds from development partners, even if we get funds from the national government, then we must have the proper legal infrastructure at the county level. And when we talk about the county level, we should also be magnanimous enough to go further and go to the subnational levels. And here we are talking about going down to the ward level, going down to the municipalities that are there, and going down to the sub-counties. And then we should be able to cascade that legal framework and to ensure that the operational units are giving support to that legal framework. And in that context, I want to say that the successful counties have already put in place proper county climate legislations, so they are ready. And therefore, if we happen to operationalize the national fund, then the counties will be prepared. So here we are also talking about the creation of the county climate change fund, the same way at the national level. And therefore, we are talking about a situation where we are not likely going to have a gap. At the same time, when we do the legislation, when I was sitting there and I was listening to Governor, I listened to Senator Kajwang, I was even asking myself that in this country, we have mainstreamed quite some delicate things like gender, like people living with disabilities. We have come up with things like AGPO. And Governor Otichiro said that the climate change threat is here with us. And it can be such a big threat. So I was thinking that we need to move further and ensure that we are very deliberate, that our budgets, that our planning, be it CIDPs, include the matters of funding for climate change, because we cannot always rely on donor funding and forget we have a responsibility. Secondly, I was looking at also, again, how we formalize the devolved governance structure from top all the way to bottom, whereby we operationalize the planning committees, both at the county level, the climate change planning committees, at the county level, at the municipal levels, and at the ward level, so that we can ascertain that anytime the funds come, then those planning committees will have a say because they are the ones on the ground. Secondly, and very quickly, which has been said, is about prioritizing locally led adaptations and ensuring we have proper public participation. Because what is very, very important is to ensure that whatever we do at the bottom of that pyramid is what really presses the people who are there. So we are talking about project identification being left to the members of public whom we are serving, and they can priority and tell us what exactly would bring a big impact if mitigated. And therefore that one is also very, very important. Then integrate the local and scientific knowledge. Here we are looking at using the same community to provide solutions. Our people have lived with these threats. These threats are real to them. If given an opportunity, they are going to give us solutions that we can modify and that we can come in and facilitate. And by doing so, the people at the lowest level will own up those projects and they'll feel their problems have been are taken care of. Finally, there is the element of what is our focus? How measurable is the impact of that mitigation? How many people are benefiting from that funding, however little, however big? I mean, when we have that mitigation in place on climate change, how many livelihoods, how many households, how many people's challenges have been sorted? And therefore, again, we need also to involve the people at the local level. Finally, Abel, before I just sign off, I want to say, to echo the sentiments of my brother Balawanga, because we happen to share the urban platform where I chair nationally. Honestly speaking, some conditions are very difficult. And those conditions that are being given, Governor, sometimes they tie our hands, because basically we are the people who know where the shoe bites most. So sometimes we have a general feeling that some conditions that we get from our partners do not really impact or benefit our people. And therefore, I think what we need to do is to always have conversations around funding. And once we have those conversations, then we can agree that to waive some of these conditions so that we can really solve the problems of our people. And why I've decided to talk about that is because while I appreciate that capacity building is good and we must do it, because we are not going to get these solutions if, one, we do not capacity build or train our staff at the county level, our staff at the ward levels and other subnational levels, and also train our communities to clearly understand the challenges of climate change and the threats that it poses. But we should also ask ourselves, after that capacity building, where do we go next? Because our people will appreciate the real solutions to the problem of climate change. So that is also something that is very, very important. Another very important thing is partnership with our national agencies like NDMA, like NEMA, who are actually specialists in that level, and more so to get real data on people being affected, so that when we pitch for donor funding, then we can be able to pitch with information and real data. Thank you.
Thanks, Waziri. Could you appreciate Waziri for the intervention? I think what is coming out is real solutions for real problems. So, Evelyn, there are challenges nationally, even locally. Climate change just determines how all of us are cascading the interventions, but the driver to these solutions is funding. And we are not saying there are no funds. His Excellency read 62 billion. That's a lot of money, USD. So, but we are not accessing it. You go to some localities, they've never seen FLOCA. You go elsewhere, they've seen it. It means there's some limits and challenges. But now, Evelyn, with your background and experience, what are the various categories of funding opportunities that the counties can access, the local government can utilize at their own level? What is practical, as Waziri says? Thanks.
Thank you, Abel, and good afternoon to everyone. Like Abel has asked, what are the categories? But I'd like you to allow me to step back a bit before I give the various categories, kind of contextualize. Yes, thank you. Kind of contextualize the landscape before I get into the categories. But of importance, I would like just to inform us or to tell us what the European Investment Bank is. It is a climate bank, and it is owned by the 27 member states of the European Union. So for those of us who've never heard about EIB or the European Investment Bank, it belongs to the 27 member states. It is also committed to financing 50% of their lending towards climate. And so we are very strong in terms of climate action. Before I get into the details of the different categories, I would like us to appreciate the landscape of lending or financing. As a financier, you always want to give your money where you're likely to get it back. And so the Constitution of Kenya, Article 212, I think, allows counties to borrow, right? But then from this discussion, clearly, counties have not been able to borrow directly. So there are conditions to it, not by the donors, but by the government of Kenya, that any money that you borrow should be focused towards capital investment projects, okay? And so you cannot borrow for operationalization, so to speak. Secondly, that should be guaranteed by the national government. And that project must also be passed by the National Assembly. That is just the Constitution. Then we move a step lower to the Public Finance and Management Act, which has additional conditions to the three that I've just discussed. And one of them is that counties should be able to demonstrate ability to repay the loan. And this I'm talking about borrowing. I'm yet to talk about the different categories. The second one is that the counties should have a clean audit account. And we've always had the Auditor General speaking, and I will not delve into the details of clean audit accounts here, but that is a condition. And then repayment plan and the cash flow projections. That means that this project should be developed to the level that you are able to project the monies you are likely to get back. This is PFM. Then we move to the third category of conditions, not from the donors, but from the government of Kenya, and that is Treasury Guidelines, Circular number 2021/1, which says the counties should ensure that they do not borrow more than 35% of their wage bill. And also, they can only borrow, in terms of debt ceiling, up to 20% of the audited revenue. 15% of the counties should contribute 15% of the total project. You're already starting to see the landscape of borrowing or let's say lending from our side. And so now allow me to move to the different categories. When we speak to the there is one category called concessional loans. Given this kind of restrictions from the national government, I would say it's very hard for counties to borrow directly. And so you have to have met the different conditions set out by your national framework to be able to borrow. And so the best category I would speak of in terms of counties borrowing or cities, so to speak, it is grants. But even those grants do come with conditions. I do not want to invest my money where I'm likely to see a waste. And so the projects should be developed to a level that you are able to see the economic and the financial benefits. And well, sometimes you might not really see the financial benefits per se, but you might see economic, social, and environmental benefits. And most of the times, these do not happen at the county level. And so that creates a very big barrier in terms of counties or cities accessing financing directly. The third category that we have is blended financing. This is whereby we as EIB have our own resources and we blend it with grants from the European Union. As an investment bank, we do not give grants. But because we are an EU bank, they do give us grants to be able to facilitate de-risking of those projects at the national level to allow us to finance it. And so that we invest our resources knowing that we are guaranteed in the event there is no repayment, then the EU comes in. And then the last category that we have that we are yet to tap in as a county is the private investments. This could be financing from commercial banks to a private investment project that is climate aligned. And so those are some of the different categories that the traditional lending streams that I could speak of. But then there are opportunities that I would just like to share. It's important that the counties, all the county projects are aligned to the grant windows. So most of the times we have projects, but we do not package them in a way that they are attractive or they can whet the appetite of a donor. And that is what Senator Kajwang was speaking to. We at the EIB, together with GIZ, we do have a project preparation facility called the Cities Climate Finance Gap Fund that can support counties structure their project to a level that they are attractive and they can be financed by the donors. Here comes the trick. Most of the financing agencies are looking for a big ticket size. And when I say big, EIB is big. We finance not less than 50 million euros of a project. For the county to be able to access that, you need to be able to bundle a number of projects to make it a big ticket size. And by ticket size, I mean the investment cost of the project. So bundling of different projects at the county level or different counties coming together and putting their projects in one, submitting it to the national government because you need the national government guarantee and you also need the national government approval to be able to access those funds. So the Cities Climate Gap Fund can help you with packaging of those different projects. So I hope I've touched on the different categories.
Thanks. Let's appreciate Evelyn. Thanks so much. Dr. Alfonso, I think we already touched on the categories of funding that exist, but there do exist specific instruments that you think, financial instruments that subnational government can access. The Kenyan landscape now, we have nearly 3 levels. You are having the national government, the county, municipalities, all cities. All these at their own level, they are implementing. They are having mandates. They want to invest. But which instruments? Because some of this lack of access is not that there's no opportunity, but also that know-how that it exists is also a challenge. Could you speak to some of the instruments that exist for local government to tap into international funding, but also other opportunities in the same landscape? Thanks.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Ebero. Thank you, GIZ, for inviting us to this very timely conversation. Because it's not just the climate that is changing. The world of finance itself is changing. The world of technology is changing. the politics, the geopolitics of this world is changing. And we must be able to situate this conversation within that changing landscape. It's very fundamental. Before I answer your question, so I have an opportunity, I have a very good fortune. When you're the last to speak, you can just say you agree. And I absolutely agree to all of the points from the governor. Thank you very much for your depth of knowledge. Now, I think we need to correct some deep-rooted notions about the world of finance. It may be very helpful. The first one is this. The quantum of capital that we need to solve all development challenges, be it climate, be it poverty and nutrition, that quantum of capital currently exists in the global economy. Money is not scarce. There is money. What the challenge is that money is not evenly distributed. Can I repeat that? Money is not necessarily scarce. Money is just not evenly distributed. Because whilst there's a challenge of capital or limited capital in one part of the world, there is enormous and abundance of capital in another part of the world. So please take this home. We're not dealing with a scarcity challenge. We're dealing with a distribution challenge. And the moment you understand that and you recognize that how you respond to a distribution challenge may not be the same way of responding to a scarcity challenge. And I think most of our approaches, even at subnational level, we're trying to address the scarcity. Because it's not just between the North and the South. Even within a country, there is still abundance of capital, perhaps dormant capital, tied down in some things, and there's a demand and a lack of capital in another part in the same country. So we must think creatively about how do we build this facilitative modality, or if you like, a bridge that brings capital from where it is most abundant, perhaps less needed, to where it is most needed but less abundant. Do you understand that? It is very fundamental. And all our innovations, all our conversation is to solve that problem. It's not to print more money. It's not to do trade and then make profit before we do the business or the investment we need to do. It is to be able to find the means to move capital from abundance to where it is most needed. The second point, on the basis of principle here is, and I say this as a black man, I think we have not understood the language of finance, the language of money, compared to the rest of the world. And that is not a problem of them, it's a problem of us. We haven't understood the language of money. And I think it's very important, even at the very micro level, to think critically about what is the language of finance. When we say something is bankable, it will interest you to know that the person that is willing to give you money, its interpretation of bankability may be different from your interpretation of bankability, or even on the demand side. This harmonization of languages are very important. Now, what is the context we're dealing with in Kenya? And let's put this in, just to understand the magnitude of it. In our NDC, from what we produced 2021 to 2030, we need $62 billion. And you keep hearing that number over and over again. If we put it in context, we need about $6.2 billion annually. That is equivalent to about 800 billion shillings. What we currently have, when we aggregate what the bulk of the public sector is giving and private sector, is not even up, it's barely $200 billion. And depending on what you count. So there's a huge gap. And one of the reasons why that gap is there is because the money that we need will not come from the public sector. It would have to come from the private sector. But private sector is a unique animal that is different from our everyday life. So what is the incentive for a private capital to flow in the direction of what we need? Those are the value of some of the instruments that we need to do. Now, in the Kenya context, the government, as well as the stakeholders, every one of us, we've placed premium on adaptation. Adaptation is a bigger part, and the reasons are very obvious. But unfortunately in Kenya, the money that is available in climate finance, even the limited resources, is going towards mitigation. Then the question is, why is it that something that we've placed priority on, which is adaptation, if money moves in the direction of value, how do we solve a problem where we place value on something, money is going to another thing? The reason is because private sector drives capital, because private sector finds commercialization and they find investment opportunity in the mitigation arena. So what are we proposing today? And that is why, number one, we need to expand the menu of instruments. In this country, 98% of all investment in adaptation, they come from two instruments, concessional loans and grants. That cannot solve the problem that we need to solve by 2030. We need to expand the menu. Number two, we also need to find a way where we articulate a partnership that unlocks capital. And I want to be very practical here. It is possible for a county to collect some fees, either from environmental impact assessment, which you do, either from an additional small levy on tourism, which you can do, either from an additional levy on restaurants. It is not taking money out of the limited resources of the government, but by creating. But what you do is with that money is you put it in a central, in a fund, and probably bring a lot of partners to manage it. But what you do with that money in that pot is not enough to solve the problem, but it becomes an equity capital. And with that, even if it constitutes about 15% of total project investment, with that, you've moved the needle forward. You can blend that with philanthropic capital, with technical assistance, to be able to do the first loss or the risk that needs to be addressed or reduced at the early stage of the project. And then you can build a revenue collection model in the project. Because there are parts of Kenya today where households pay 30% of their salary of household income to buy water. So there is already a demonstrated capacity and willingness to pay. But if you create an investment project where you reduce that payment from 30% of household income by 15%, you still have people who are willing to pay. And that becomes a revenue model. If you can then also bring in private people who would depend on the infrastructure to be able for their production system, and there is also a capacity and willingness to pay. All of this thinking, they are not rocket science, but we need to be able to bring people together in a way and bring resources together in order to solve the problem. I want to end with this. AFGB, we have been a partner of choice, working with many counties in Kenya and beyond. And in fact, we're one of the very few MDBs that have experimented with lending to subnational. To subnational entities outside, not necessarily in Kenya, but also outside in other countries. And we can learn a lot from that, particularly in the design of the project. I want to end with this. Anytime you get a grant resource, it must never be to implement the 100% of the project. It's a waste of grant capital to never use it to attract other capital. Unfortunately, we're building financial models where if the project costs 100 million shillings, we're looking for 100 million shillings grant. However, 100 million shillings grant could be the catalyst to unlock up to $1 billion shilling capital to be able to do a lot of projects. And we stand ready to work with you on taking this forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Dr. Lee. That's very, very powerful. Are you feeling the insights? I think access to finance is a lesson I think we could have with the Dr. Alfonso in the future to get to the instruments. These risking investments and all that, I think is where we have big challenges, not only in mitigation, but adaptation is the most difficult project to pull off because of the risk of investment involved. But you are getting the insights, how those who understand the instruments, I think we need to get closer and discuss better how we can get around it. Allow me to welcome Minthika. At last, he joined the panel. Climate justice is a big topic that is also growing quite fast in Kenya. For those who have traveled across the country, I think it is evident that there is so much suffering that is happening to various social groups, whether they are women, children, the elderly. The impact of some of these climatic issues they are talking about, whether it is flooding, it affects every group in society differently. And climate justice is one of the dimensions that has come in handy to try and make everybody have equity in accessing resources, accessing this. If we get funding today, who utilizes the funds? I think the climate justice is informing, it's the conscious for everybody to have some fair play in intervening and taking action. So, Mithika, how can the principles of climate justice be integrated in the Kenyan landscape of planning? We are not in deficit of planning. We have so many plans in Kenya now. FLOCA and other initiatives have actually driven the planning in Kenya in climate to be nearly a national milestone that every county is having some sort of climate plan or policy. But how do we integrate the principles of climate justice in these plans so that we can reflect them also when you are taking action? Well,
thank you very much, moderator. I want first to apologize for coming late. I was sitting in two panels which are running in parallel, but fortunately they were adjacent to each other. So I was following what was happening. So I had to sneak out when I spoke in the other one. But fortunately, I've been able to be here. And I want to also, wherever I come into such a panel or a meeting, even whatever happens, whatever disruption, like what happened, because this was disrupted by the presence of the big shots led by the former prime minister. The only person I know will never miss whatever happens is our mentor, the governor of Vihiga. He should be here. So thank you very much, First Minister. I normally like to acknowledge you wherever I speak because you are like the father figure for all the achievements which we have made, including what we are talking about, these imperatives of climate justice. And starting from there then, I want to start by mentioning really when we talk about climate justice, and rightly, these principles is really a fairly new notion. 10 years ago, the notion of climate justice was a peripheral issue in international discourse on climate change. But now it's mainstream because we have acknowledged the role of the people, what FLOCA is doing. And by the way, FLOCA is a manifestation of climate justice. What FLOCA is implementing is exactly these imperatives, that we have to acknowledge the role of the people. So there are three dimensions. Just before I answer you, first dimension of climate justice are three. First one is restorative justice, that at international level, we are aware that within the UNFCCC framework, we acknowledge that someone somewhere caused this problem, and this problem is affecting somebody, and this someone should pay, compensate the victim of their actions. And that's why within that framework, we are always in the courts, because that cannot be negotiated in a hall like with the one we have, because it is an international process, and actually it is very emotive. So that's restorative justice. But there is also distributive justice, another dimension. And these dimensions means that distribution of the benefits of whatever we get, then how are they going to get us? And that has been the question, for instance, of climate finance. How is it going? And when that money comes, for instance, who is going to have it and who is going to contribute it? So that has been, again, at international politics. But there is the other very important dimension then, which makes us sit here, the procedural justice. So procedural justice is really what we are doing here and what FLOCA has been trying to do. And the question which you are asking me is, we have several policies in Kenya, for instance, the Kenya Climate Change Act 2016, now 2023, the NAPAs, we have now NDCs, and those others. They are done by consultants and us who called ourselves practitioners, but have there been the voice of the people, the real consumers of that. Communities at the front line of climate change, climate crisis. That is smallholder farmers at a very local level. Local communities are very local level. Indigenous communities are very local level. And all those, the young people, women, those people, that woman who goes to fetch water in the morning, walks 20 kilometers, because there are counties here we have where water is very scarce. In fact, it's a commodity they cannot access. And so the question then, which you are asking is, how then do we do that? And we have been doing it. The question is whether we have been doing it sufficiently. So I don't want actually to say how we do it, because we have already done it. If you pick the FLOCA model, and because I believe that it is because we have been part of it and really ensuring that those principles which you are talking about have been integrated into it. Equitable distribution, for instance, allocation of county funds. So when you look at it, there is no other country. And that's why you can see FLOCA has become a very attractive model. It started in Kenya. And right now, the World Bank, which funded it as a pilot, is now replicating it all over in Eastern and Southern Africa. Because it works, it has attracted, in fact, any other donor, including AFDB, they feel that that's where, because it is structured and it makes sense. So that then allocation of funds, according to that vulnerability, through that mapping, through that prioritizing marginalized people, is quite important. So that's one. The other one is community participation. You cannot access FLOCA money. His Excellency is here. It is not possible. It has got very tight guidelines and framework. You have to fulfill that, including even this account is not managed by the national government. So a consolidated fund. No, it is direct. So you have really to ensure that there is that participatory community participation. Addressing vulnerabilities, capacity building. People must understand why they must be involved. Those are other elements of that. And then inclusive policies, like for instance, before you have one of the key demands, requirements by the counties from the PIU is the establishment of county climate change fund and legislation, so that now it is detached from that level. Because when we established the National Climate Change Act 2016, then it just ended there. But now, through this imperative, it has been trickled down. So before you access that money, you need to have that, so that also the county has its contribution, and that makes it sense. So this actually is a very important elements. And when you look at, they look so poetic. I was listening to my a presenter in the other room, from a gentleman, I think a chief officer from Makweni. When you listen to him, and that is an involved government and a person working at that level, you listen to what he is presenting, you really realize that ownership is very important, and ownership as part of that really implementation is very important, another as an imperative of achieving climate justice.
Thanks, Mithika. Let's appreciate Mithika. Thanks so much. I think that cannot be over-explained. There is so much effort that's going on all of us are aware, the community involvement, and also the community-based committees that FLOCA has also supported. So there's quite some footprint of already we are doing something. It is a good sign that Kenya is still leading the way. And others, I think, have to learn from what we've been doing. Back to Waziri Raymond, on the building on what you just presented to us on this, how the national government mechanisms that can be streamlined for better access to climate finance. What are some of the lessons? The counties have not been doing nothing. I'm just learning from what His Excellency presented here, what all the speakers have been. There's something going on. Do you have some best cases you can share with us today? Thanks.
Yes. I think, Abel, once again, I want to say Governor Otichiro has a clear understanding of even some of the success stories. And he has actually mentioned a number of them across the counties. I think it's something very close to his heart. We are talking of, even Milika has spoken about the success through FLOCA, and I can't underscore more what FLOCA has done. And then it shows that with a structured approach, then it is possible to achieve what we want to achieve in climate change action. So we have successful success stories that we can share in Wajir County, in Makueni County, in my own home county, Machakos, Kwale, and so on and so forth. But I want actually to go away from, because Governor spoke about quite a number of projects. If you go to the arid areas, you realize county has worked hand in hand with NDMA, worked with NEMA. They have been able to establish water pans that are solar powered, and they've been able to distribute water to their people as a means of mitigation towards that end. You go to a place like Machakos, we have the Ngetani smallholder irrigation scheme that has over 80 households, and those are around 400 to 500 people who are benefiting from that. But away from that, I want even to give an example of my home county, Embu. And I want to point out at a collaboration between KDI, and I want to thank Abel and GIZ, because you've been part and parcel of an example that many of us may not be knowing or has not been documented. In Embu town, in a settlement called Dallas, which is within Embu, we have an area that has had a big challenge of flooding. And through now KDI and GIZ, we were able to get down, collaborate with the county. We got an MOU in place. We did capacity building. We involved the members of public, as Midinga was saying, from the local level. And we've been able to bring forth a nature-based solution to prevent the flooding that has been there. In fact, as late as last week before, I think that's the last function that we did with GIZ, because we were flagging off that project. And it was immense, and you could feel that the Dallas population are owning the project, they are associating with it, and they feel that their problem has been sorted. I felt that there are those counties that may have done those documented projects, but I felt that I can share that. Secondly, in Embu, we have come up with a policy as a county, and we have invested in a water rig as a county. And the policy is that we are using solar pumping systems for our boreholes to do the last mile. And I think that is also a direction to take. As Dr. was talking about, you don't think about the funds that you get up to 100%. And therefore, we are putting in some funds as capital, and then going out of the way to see whether we can partner with other players in this space. We had a meeting even with Red Cross, and they were glad enough to say, we will be ready to come in and support you in operationalizing of the boreholes through solar, equipping the boreholes by solar pumping, if you can be able to do the sinking of the boreholes. And I think that is the direction to take. I don't want to talk about what has already been said by the guru and the examples that have been given, because that is what I have. But I think I have at least given some success stories. Thank you.
Thanks, Waziri. Let's appreciate Waziri for. Because of time, I want us to create time for the plenary. So I will give 2 minutes to Evelyn just to highlight project bankability. For me, I find it interesting because when you do it at your own level, at the county, I've interacted with some developing concepts from the idea stage to the level it is ready for submission for investment to financiers. What are those obvious gaps that you see that the counties and all local government can work on, can improve in terms of making their projects attractive to financiers? Just high level, quick 2 minutes.
Thank you, Abel. If I may touch on the gaps, I think at the county level, most of the times what we receive are project ideas. The project is not fully developed. And so as a financier, you want to be able to understand what are the risks involved in this project. And so most of the projects that come across on our desk, they do not have any studies or what we call upstream project development, so to speak. So we do not know the economic returns because, again, we don't focus a lot on the financial return on the investment, but we want to be able to see what are the impacts in terms of positive impacts that the beneficiaries will have. So most of the times counties do not have that, and the project is not fully developed. And that's why we have this trust fund called the Cities Climate Gap Fund to be able to support counties, and we're already having one in Embu. We have one in Nyamira to be able to support them to develop projects to a level that they are attractive to the investors. The second component is the business model. How do you want to structure this project to ensure that there is sustainability? That, again, is a very weak link that we see with projects that are emanating from the county level. The third aspect that we see is the governance structure. You have a very good project, but how you will manage it beyond the funding, how you will ensure that it continues to operate beyond the financing period, that is always lacking as well. So those are some of the things that quickly came into my mind in terms of areas where the counties can actually improve on. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's appreciate Evelyn. To Dr. Alfonso, I think we really got a very nice highlight to what we have as instruments. But generally, which sectors do you think the financials are really focusing on now? Because also it keeps changing. It's a changing landscape. Today is climate, tomorrow they go to energy. And maybe there is something that makes mitigation attract more people. Do you think financials are still willing to see more mitigation concepts, or we can really have different perspectives right now? Thanks.
Thank you. So that conversation needs to be balanced in a way, because if we give the narrative plainly as us, people who need money, always meeting the conditions of the supplier of capital, then it's not fair. Because sometimes as well, the supplier of capital, they need to understand the context and the demands of the demand side of capital. So it has to be balanced. So every time for us as a bank, we speak to both sides of the eye. So let's imagine that this is the demand side that needs to be able to tap into that. The question you always ask yourself is, why is somebody not investing, even when the project is very good? The answer is simple, is their idea of risk. That risk could be real, it could be imagined, it could be whatever it is. Now, what you can do on your side is to provide some comfort measures in reducing or sharing the risk. There are some risks that you may never reduce, but you can spread the risk out. And that is where we encourage a blended finance approach. What you do with blended finance is you bring different sources of capital into a central pot on the table, and each capital source is able to address a particular type of risk. When we blend everything together, we spread the risk, we share it, and at the same time, it will provide comfort to anyone who's going to lend. The second part is we must prioritize projects that find a way to generate revenue. I think it's, I know some projects, somebody will say, but think about water. But water is a basic human right. But you see, water is also a factor of production. So we have to find a way. If it's agriculture will yield goods and products that will be sold and revenue will come in. So there have to be a way of integrating revenue generation into that model. Final part is we are beginning to appreciate the fact that money is not just a note, it's not just a check. Money or finance is nested in relationship, whether political relationship or economic relationship. As we find a way at county level to build more strategic relationships, I think we get closer in understanding what it takes to unlock this capital. Those relationships could be among counties in aggregating programs. So like you said, Evelyn, $50 million for one county may be a big, it cannot be absorbed. I mean, for us, it's about at least $30 million. But if you create a strategic relationship among counties, particularly around a resource that is transboundary, or an infrastructure that can connect them from production centers to consumer centers, we see the value in that. So these are some of the things that are not necessarily rocket science, but we need that leadership. And Governor, I want to congratulate you. Everybody attests to your leadership. Please take this to your other governors, and then let there be a lot of thinking, a lot of conversation, as opposed everybody trying to do on its own. We're better off cooperating than competing. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Alfonso. I take this opportunity to welcome His Excellency to the podium for a few questions from the plenary and all the speakers. I think the rest are not in. And we should appreciate His Excellency. His patience, his focus on this topic is here since the beginning, and is still with us. Thanks. So, Kennedy, you could get a few questions from the floor.
Wait, what is climate change? Interesting. Okay, I think that must have been a test question, I assume. So Mentimeter is up. I am looking for the logins. Yes. So if you have internet, I think Safaricom is providing for free here. Okay. It's weak. Try. Or scan that barcode, that QR code. If you can scan it, it will take you to WhatsApp. Okay. Please. Okay, good. So try and scan. The alternative is you go to... Who has managed to scan? Anybody who has scanned it? Okay, good. Meanwhile, I will pass the mic to any question that is already ripe. This is ripe.
Thank you so much. And I'm also happy to see Governor, Your Excellency, you have been so good to us in terms of climate and climate change and supporting environmental movement in the country. And all the speakers, you are also very good in terms of articulating issues. I have few concerns, but I'll be very fast. I'm David Kuria from Kiambu County. To the development partners, I think you should also go further down because you have been engaging on behalf of counties through national government, and you don't understand the situation on the ground. And that has been an issue, that you are engaging on behalf of a county through national agencies, and sometimes they don't give you the reality on the ground. And that's one concern I have had. The other thing is, as we speak, I also resonate very well with Senator Kajong and the manager. Your Excellency, I'm having a problem in FLOCA in some situations. It can also be cartel from up, international, and then to national. sometimes we don't do things the way we are supposed to be doing. And I'm talking from a victim level point of view. Sometimes we are given conditions that we can't meet. But when you try to talk to the people concerned, it's like they don't understand how the county works. And I'm really appealing to you the way you have held at hand. Work with us and talk to their governors and the Council of Governors so that they can understand what the counties go through. The budgeting cycle, the politics of the county and all those things, sometimes they can affect a very good program, the otherwise good program. I'm happy anyway. And Your Excellency, I think I will come to you to see those instruments, but particularly if they can be reduced in terms of, the language can be reduced to sound the county of the counties.
Okay, thank you for that question. I will take two more, and kindly please be precise. I think time is much gone, and we don't want to stay here longer.
Okay, thank you so much. I think my question goes to Dr. Olufuso. I think it's quite impressive to hear that you've been dealing with subnational governments. And here comes the counties, which are facing very strict conditions for them to access the funds. So how can then the counties leverage on FDP to get the funds for climate action? Thank you.
Thank you so much. One more? Yeah, sure.
Thank you, and thank you, Governor, for
because of so many other issues. So what you have raised is pertinent, and we as the Council of Governors, we are pushing it so that we can be able to have that window opened for us.
Thank you very much, Governor. And the question that you asked is very pertinent indeed. First and foremost, we need to agree that we need multiple FLOCA to be able to address the scale of the challenge. One FLOCA is not enough for the whole of Kenya. We need multiple. It may not be called FLOCA, but that model needs to be, we need multiples of them. That's one. Number two, look, actually, and thanks very much, Evelyn, for setting the saying. The fact that the Constitution actually allows it, because in that context, the Constitution recognizes the county as a government. However, there is a question. If you're talking about grants, donors or development partners, and I don't like the word donors, development partners can provide grants directly to counties. That's no problem. That is happening. We're doing that across water, agriculture, climate action. However, if you're talking about big tickets that requires to borrow, there are questions about repayability. What is the quantum of the internal generated revenue to be able to pay back? The reason why you need the National Treasury to put a signature behind it is because for development partners, the Treasury is the gatekeeper in the country. And Governor, and I'm looking at your face, and and that gatekeeping is very fundamental. And it's important because in the event that the county is not able to pay, the national government would have to pay. And so that's why it's important. Look, we have done in some cities like Johannesburg, Lagos, Cairo, and now we have a huge pool of cities who are coming to us. We've been able to lend, and they have a systemic, they have a very predictive inflow revenues generated, and they're able to repay the loan. But more importantly, they also have their central government signaling their support behind it.
Perhaps we are infant, we are at the formative stage, that we have not reached that level, that there is a lot of overbearing from the national government to county level. And even if the national government controls 85% of the budget, they still want to control the counties. I think you have a long way to go. One takeaway from Raila's address is that I think this is a journey. This is a process. We will reach there. I think we are not very badly off. But still, others, of course, is that we need to be hopeful like those journey to the Canaan, where, that Moses and anyone was preaching to the children of Israel that we are going to Canaan. Even the Canaan he has never seen. He is telling, let us be hopeful. So we remain being hopeful. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, Waziri?
Thank you. Mine is simple. Again, I agree with Mithika. The dream of PPP needs to be actualized. His counties, we are yet to really understand what happens. Two, we need to think of scaling up partnerships and collaborations. I think that is what is very, very important. I can't agree more with Evelyn, because as counties, we have opportunities of borrowing through even our own utilities. And we've done that. And I think finally is to believe that we can come up with what they call bankable projects. that is the new word in town that can give us money. So I think more and more capacity building on bankable projects should be done so that we can be able to access funding. Thank you.
Excellent. So our guests are coming back. We are going to the last part of this activity, but I'll pick one or two questions as I settle. From Mentimeter, you can roll the questions. The next one. Okay, welcome back. We are winding up this session very well, and very soon we will be launching, really not launching per se, but unveiling the Climate Finance Handbook that was developed with the support of GIZ and the partnership of National Treasury. Okay, how can we leverage data sharing between development partners for project development post pre-feasibility study? Not sure who will take that. Please proceed. The next question. Cities and urban areas lead in greenhouse gas emissions. What plans are there to have programs or funding to adapt to this problem? Final one. And what measures are being taken or undertaken to ensure a common person understands climate change and their role in the process? That question, I'll take it to Bwana Mithika. I know they're doing a lot of advocacy, and he will tell us really what are they doing to ensure that the common person understands climate change and become part of the problem and the solution. Bwana Mithika, start with that.
As I said, that's an imperative of climate justice. And I will not say that what is being done, but what we are doing right now as partners in this process. And, you have to interpret what awareness is, and however much you are going to try, people will not be reached. But taking advantage of the technological evolution, right now, every community in Kenya has a vernacular, their own language, And the question is, how do we ensure that we use those platforms for information dissemination? And that I remember one time when we were talking about this, somebody was asking, even in Kiswahili, what is climate change? It was very difficult for anyone because we assume here, we sit here and invite our representative civil society at the county level, then at the sub-county, those committees, and assume that we have disseminated. It is very difficult. It is until one time we had to get that terminology from Tanzania that climate change is called mabadiliko tabia nchi. It was very difficult. Even I remember Dr. Tichilo was there that time. So I think what we need to do is we really need to simplify and demystify what we are calling climate change. And with the structures which we have at local level, then we need to have that ambitious program. Then take advantage also of the young people. We have our demography. I think 60% of our population is young people. And most of them access this technology, the mobile phone. They have, actually, most of them have smartphones. How do we take advantage of that? Because they reach as many people as possible. We are running a program called Nairobi Summer School on Climate Justice. That is one way of doing it, ensuring that the young people who are coming from universities, from high schools, this year we end application of around 10,000. I think we end 2,000 from Kenya. So how do we work under FLOCA? How do we work under even schools to ensure that we trickle down that effort? So it is very important, I think, but that is, again, an incremental process. You cannot say that we are going to ensure that even if we do it in vernacular, people will say that we are not reaching people. Others.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bwana Mithika. Please, can you give Mithika a round of applause? And now, please, let us give the entire panel a round of applause, please. And because of time, we will not pick more questions, but we want to ask you to continue sending them. We will find experts to just go in there and feed. Then you can see the answers at a different time. Madam Evelyn, if it under a minute.
Yes, I did not want one question there to go unanswered.
Sure.
There was a question regarding data and pre-feasibility studies. And I want to tell you that there are so many project preparation facilities that exist. I've spoken to one, the Cities Climate Finance Gap Fund, that is accessible to cities and municipalities to prepare their projects and conduct feasibility studies. GIZ also has other project preparation facilities. Balawanga, we're already supporting 2 projects in Kisumu under the Cities Climate Gap Fund. And so other cities, other municipalities are welcome to make an application to this particular facility. I also know you have another facility you want to mention, so.
Alfonso.
No, it's the same.
Sure.
I think it's important. We have a lot of project preparation facilities. Some are very sector specific, some are on the general infrastructure landscape. The one we know, most of you know, is the Urban and Municipal Development Fund. And I think we've worked in many counties. We'll continue to, as we mobilize money, we disperse it. And now, Kennedy, it's important to remind ourselves, many of us, by the grace of God, all things being equal, we will still be alive by 2050. When we hear 2050, it's not too far away. The population of Kenya is expected to be at least 90 million. At least 90 million. 40 million people are expected to join. But this is what is unique. 80% of that growth is going to happen in cities. So I want to make a special appeal to you, Governor, to Senator. In Kenya, we need a Kenya City Development Program. It's not with the normal way we're doing it, where it is nested with a county arrangement. Specifically investment that will be targeting city development, because they're going to be the next frontiers of both opportunities, but also of challenges if we don't fix them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is Olofunso Somorin from African Development Bank. It is important that I mention the names again of our partners because the senator was not in. But before then, he had requested that the development partners should be able to facilitate unconditionally. So we had in the room, actually still, Dr. Olofunso Somorin from African Development Bank. Then we also have Evelyn Otieno from the European Investment Bank. Thank you so much. Dear panelists, please help me give them rounds of applause as they sit down. So just take a seat. Take a seat. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. Now, at Think Chencha, colleagues, we will go to the last session of unveiling the Climate Finance Handbook. This handbook, as I've mentioned, was developed in partnership with the National Treasury. And here with us, we have Bwana Peter Odhengo, who is representing National Treasury. Please help me welcome Peter. He will come and just give us an highlight of what is contained in this handbook. Then we will invite Bwana Governor to unveil. Thereafter, All the dignitaries in front here will come, and together we'll celebrate the unveiling and, of course, take some photos as we wind up this session.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me ride on the already established protocol. I know you must have established one, Olofonso, so let me ride on that. If you did not, then I will also ride on a non-established protocol. Colleagues, the work that we are launching today is a partnership between the National Treasury and Economic Planning with the GIZ and a series of partners. Always, we work through partners. National Treasury does not implement. We create, we facilitate, and then we allow our development partners to co-create with our local people. It is upon today that we are launching this. But what is Climate Finance Training Manual? Number one, accessing climate finance is one of the most challenging things ever. To develop what we call a bankable project proposal, you need very key 4 areas. You have to understand what is climate finance. Climate finance, even up to now, when you are using the UN system, you still do not have a definite definition. It is still being negotiated. That definition, if you miss it, you will not be able to attract climate finance. 2, there are skills of how to mobilize climate finance. It's not about the money. It's money including the enabling environment. And one of the enabling environment is the policy landscape. The policy landscape and the political goodwill are very key in climate finance mobilization. It is on this that you hear that Kenya has already developed Climate Change Act, and I appreciate His Excellency the Governor from 2013. We got it.